I'm the coordinator of undergraduate research. We have a lovely panel of 5 brilliant students who are going to talk about their research and how they got involved in research. I'm going to do a brief introduction of the 5 people, and then I will ask some questions and let them go through and answer. And then if you guys have any questions, feel free to pop in at any time. This is kind of an informal conversation, but feel free to just pipe in or offer suggestions anytime you feel like you have one. Sound good? Okay, on our first panelist up here is Ashley Flora. She lives in Mathiston and got her BS in nursing from the W in 2013. She's currently pursuing her master's in family nurse practitioner degree here. Currently, Ashley, with 4 other master's student researchers, is conducting a study to determine whether or not primary care providers are screening geriatric patients for depression, what depression screening tools are utilized by primary care providers, and what treatments are being prescribed for diagnoses of depression in the geriatric population. And after graduating, Ashley hopes to work in a rural health. Next, we have Umisha KC. She's a senior communication major with 2 minors in general business and marketing. And this past summer, as a summer scholar, she looked at representation in Hollywood through her project Voices in Hollywood, representation of people of color in popular films. And currently, as a senior honor student, she's working on her research project titled Memes in the Motherland, Online Communities in the Diaspora. Next, we have John Jacob Miller. He's a senior public health education major with a concentration in sexual health. Is that right, John Jacob?
That is correct.
He's from Summerall, Mississippi. He has worked on 2 projects while here. First, a study of the economic, geographic, and cultural factors that impact healthcare access in Peru. And second, a study of the knowledge, attitudes, and perceived barriers to care affecting the sexual health of emerging adults. The first study in Peru was a meta-analysis style review of available literature, reported health statistics, financial data, legal influences, and personal accounts. And the second project is ongoing, and it's a survey-style study of the sexual health knowledge of college students and the factors that influence their decision-making. Next, we have Arpana. And Arpana, can you say your last name for me? I'm sorry. Arpana is a senior biology major with a chemistry minor. She's an international student from Nepal. Her research is in Dr. Hagee's lab, and it's comparing toe pad shape across distantly related pad-bearing lizards using computational methods. And finally, last but not least, is Crystal Hill Keys. She is a music therapy major from Flint, Michigan. The focus of her presentation was harm in music therapy, and that study looked into music therapy ethics and standards for professionals practicing music therapy, and it explored some potential concerns associated with unqualified individuals practicing under the label of music therapy without the proper training. So we have a very diverse panel across the board in terms of discipline here. So we'll just get started with some questions. Can you talk a little bit about one of the research questions that you were or are currently pursuing and how you got involved?
Well, as an undergraduate at MUW's baccalaureate nursing program, my study determined whether or not nurses in practice knew the appropriate site for intramuscular injections, being the ventrogluteal or the dorsogluteal. And we did that by passing out a survey to local hospitals and clinics, and those nurses answering them and garnering those responses. And what we found is that the vast majority of nurses didn't know the difference or where the injection went. That study was phenomenal in preparing me for the graduate program here, in which we are also required to do a research study, and we are working to determine whether or not primary care practitioners are screening for depression, if they are screening, how they're doing it, and if they're finding it, how they're treating it. What we have seen in our individual practices prior to coming into this program, we don't believe that's happening in every capacity that it should be, and we're hoping that what we find will be able to shed some light to that and maybe make a difference in that matter.
So the research project that I'm working on, Memes in the Motherland. So all my friends were really getting into this Facebook group called Subtle Nepali Traits. And I'm pretty sure it was Arpana who actually added me to that group in the first place. But I was going through it, and it was all these memes that people made themselves, and they were all pertaining to a shared cultural identity, which was being Nepali in, well, a Western country, which was, not, be it here or Australia or just anywhere, but like, so all these memes just seemed very interesting to me. And I was just about to start my 401, which was my honors senior thesis. And I just wanted to look at why people are taking time out of their lives to create these memes and like just be involved in this group so much, which was how my research interest started.
Well, I worked on two in my time here. One, the ones focusing on the healthcare of Peru, was kind of a hobby project that was born out of some research I did while in the country with the Honors College. And the second one, which is kind of like my baby, is college students and HIV, and it focuses on their attitudes, perceptions, and barriers to care that college students perceive when accessing sexual health services. Because half of all infections for STIs happen in people younger than 25, which is the college age population. So, and very little research has been done on the sociological aspect of the impact of education and all the other factors that kind of create a sexual atmosphere on a college campus. So I was really excited to be one of the first to be able to find out and unearth some of this information.
I was just really curious to do research. I didn't know what kind of research I wanted to do. All I knew was like I wanted to work in a lab. And then so I was just trying to find a teacher to work with here. And then Dr. Hagee, when he came here in 2017, I was like, hey, you're setting up your lab, let me work with you. And then he was just interested in like, I don't know if you've ever looked at like lizard toe pad shapes. They're like really weird. They're just crazy. And then like we certainly like he had pictures, and then we saw that like even though they're like super distantly related, they seem to have like similar looking toe pads, which is weird. And then so I wanted to, and it's never been quantified before. It's called convergent evolution, when like two distantly like related species start, going through evolution, and then they at the end have the similar type of toe pad. And so we started using all these computational methods to kind of quantify it, and it was super interesting. And then now currently I'm not working with Dr. Hagee anymore. I'm starting to do my research at Dr. Anya Gucci's lab with breast cancer stuff, because I just have so many like interests. I just wanted to kind of try everything in my undergraduate. So yeah.
So my research topic came about due to a research class that the music therapy students have to participate in every semester. And so the focus kind of came from the underrepresentation of music therapy and how it's often confused with different things from people who don't necessarily have the credentials to practice music therapy, but they call it music therapy. And so basically I wanted to look into music therapy ethics. What makes us music therapists, what makes us credentialed, and why that's set apart from just like a general label. And so over the course of the semester, I found out some really cool things about the topic and some things that separate music therapists from any other programs.
So it's interesting to hear that you all had very different approaches to coming at a research project. Some of you had a project in mind and you said, this is what I want to pursue. Some of you thought, I just want to get involved and I don't care what it is I do as long as it's kind of related to my major. And some of you thought, well, I have to do this because it's part of my class. So with that in mind, can you talk a little bit about some of the reservations you had in embarking on research and some of the things that made you excited about it? Like two things that got you nervous about it, but also got you excited. Can you talk about this?
So I guess I'll start with what made me nervous. It's just like a lot of information to feed through, and the parameters, like the time limit, I had to find everything I needed and then put it into a paper. But after I found a podcast that was focused directly on what I wanted to research, it was like that opened up the floodgates of excitement, because it's like somebody else is researching this topic too. So it's relevant. It validated my feelings of, okay, we need to know more about this. And so some of the reservations in the beginning kind of went away, but I was still afraid because we found out that we would present about the topic, and public speaking is not necessarily my favorite thing to do. But it was exciting after everything got started and more information was uncovered.
For me, I definitely lacked the background to be doing the research that I was doing, because at the time I was taking a programming class, but what we required to do all the software stuff, like I'd never even heard of it before. So it was definitely going to be super challenging for me. And at that point, like I already had 2 jobs, and then to add research onto that, that was going to come out of my personal time. I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to handle all that with the 18 credits I was taking at the point. But as I started doing the research, like it just helped me kind of escape everything. Like it just cleared my mind because I would be focused for such a long period of time. So it really helped me just stay focused in school, just because it helped me plan out my day and be more productive. Yeah.
So I think I'm going to combine both the exciting and the terrifying aspects of embarking on research into, you're going into uncharted territory. Because I think that's kind of the whole idea behind research, is the fact that you're learning something that has not been learned before, or you are learning something in a way that has never been done before. And kind of taking it upon yourself as an undergraduate with, what some would say no academic credentials, to learn this whole new thing or to try to reinvent the wheel is a terrifying thing, because what if you fail? But also, what if you do it well? So it's really exciting because you have this whole push and pull of emotions of, oh my goodness, this is so exciting. This is what I want to learn. And I get to do it, and no one can tell me I can't. So there's a lot of emotions, and I think just the not knowing is probably the best and the worst part of research.
So I think I'm gonna just reiterate what they all said, but I think the major portion of my source of anxiety for me was like thinking, oh my God, I'm so dumb. What have I done? What have I gotten myself into? But and like the fun part was when it starts making sense and you're like, well, this is going somewhere. Like it might be not a lot of work, but it's still some work that I'm doing. And honestly, I was just really glad to be getting research experience as an undergraduate, because I knew that ultimately I wanted to apply to graduate school, and I knew that this was going to help me a lot. So that was the most exciting part, like just getting to do research while you're at an undergraduate level.
The most exciting part of being a part of research, particularly in healthcare and especially in nursing, is knowing that what you are participating in will help in making evidence-based practice. And that evidence-based practice is what backs up the guidelines that are set forth in healthcare. It helps with everything from what medications are used to treat something, all the way with how Medicare and Medicaid reimburse for certain things. Evidence-based practice particularly makes the world go round in healthcare. So to know that you are helping to make the next step in healthcare, knowing that you are able to look at research, determine if that's good research, knowing if that's something you want to implement in your healthcare agency and in your own practice, that's something to get excited about, because you're ultimately helping your patients in the long run. The most inhibiting thing about it is sitting up front going, okay, well, we're going to do a research project about this, and looking at everything in front of you is very overwhelming. You kind of, are sitting on the ledge going, oh my gosh, what have I done? But I have to do this because it's required of me. Mm-hmm. But knowing where you are in the end is worth every bit of the anxiety and every bit of the work that you put in, because you have the opportunity to better yourself in the long run.
This is really interesting to hear that you guys have some of the same reservations and some of the same enthusiasm. And I wonder, with those things in mind, what you think is required of somebody who might mentor you through that process, be it a faculty member, one of your peers, something that's not related to you at all. What do you think are some qualities that help you get through and process those feelings that you have that just come with research, regardless of what you're researching?
Well, with both the baccalaureate and master's nursing programs, those are assigned to us. We get a faculty advisor, and that is the person that guides us through our research. And I have been very fortunate in both programs to get advisors that are very knowledgeable, that are wonderful in their particular fields, and have been able to guide us without any problems whatsoever. And I will say of both programs, there's not a single faculty member I can think of that wouldn't be wonderful to work with. They're all incredibly knowledgeable. They're all incredibly patient with their students, and they're just phenomenal to work with research.
So for both of my independent research, I got to choose my own advisor, which was great. And I think the major thing that he has done to help me is reassure me when I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, but you've done this, all of this, and like all you have to do is take the next step, which always helps. And I feel like you should also choose an advisor who will tell you if you're doing something wrong, because ultimately it's going to be your work and his name is also going to be on there. So you need someone who will reassure you, but also guide you towards the right direction.
I think the best advice I can give anyone who's looking for a research mentor or research advisor is to first know yourself, because you need to be able to identify the type of traits you need in a mentor or an advisor. And this goes beyond research. Whether it's a personal mentor or an academic mentor or a research mentor, you need to know what it is that you need out of the mentor-mentee relationship. You need someone who's going to be a hard line, who will text you every day and be like, hey, remember, this paper is due in 2 weeks. Hey, this paper is due in a week. Or do you need someone who will give you a large degree of freedom, who is just kind of there to catch the crises and help you cry? So that's, I think, the biggest advice I can give is know what you need from a mentor, and then find someone who you trust that can best deliver what you need, and someone who can help you but also benefit from the relationship as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with him. For me, I knew that I needed someone that was going to let me have all this freedom where I can go ask my own questions and kind of just explore everything by myself, and then get back to the advisor and just say, okay, this is what I found. Like, what do you think of it? But I also needed someone who was going to be there for me and like reassure me, like Misha said. But it was just at the end of the day, like it took me a while after my first research experience that I did over the summer. After that first experience, I kind of knew what I wanted, because, like all you can do is try new things. And then after that, I was like, okay, maybe the next advisor I want, like this is kind of what I want from them. And then before I even began my research, I was like, this is what I'm looking for. Like, what do you offer? Like, can we settle in a middle point somewhere so that we can work together and have a super fruitful relationship?
I also agree with everything everyone else said, and I'll add a little bit from my personal experience. I found it easier to actually sit down and have conversations with my mentor, and having her be someone that I can bounce ideas off of, because a lot of times just having someone there to listen to what you have to say, you kind of work through the problem on your own in a way. They're just kind of there as a warm body to occupy a seat and make you feel okay about the research project and what you found. And it's kind of validating that, okay, I'm on the right track. Even though you didn't give me a lot of feedback at the time, you allowed me to talk through the things that I need to just get out of my brain and kind of put it into how it can be utilized in my research. So that's one thing I found to be very good with both of the mentors that I got the opportunity to work with during this project, and with the different things we do every semester.
A couple of you have mentioned that you wanted to go to graduate school, and some of you have not mentioned that, and I'm not assuming that you don't want to go, but I'm wondering, did participating in research influence you to apply to graduate school? And if not, what has it influenced you to do instead with what you've learned?
I am considering graduate school, but I'm not quite to the point of making like that major decision yet. I'm just trying to make it through the semester at this point. But what this research did for me is really empower me to advocate for the profession that I want to be in. Because if we don't advocate for ourselves, then this information that we gain from all this research, it won't go far, especially within music therapy, speaking from a personal perspective. So it really lit a fire underneath me to really get out here and spread the word of music therapy and do more research about the topic so that I'm more knowledgeable when I communicate with other people, so that I have something valuable to say. And then when it comes to graduate school, then of course I'll be able to go more in depth with everything.
For me, I always knew that I wanted to go to graduate school, but now I've applied to like a few PhD programs, and I really wanted to make sure that I actually even like enjoyed research before I committed like 5 to 6 years of my life into it. And now that I've done a couple of research, like I know I'll be fine if I were to find the correct type of research and the correct advisor. But it just kind of reassured me that what I had first intended, like I was on the right path.
Research has definitely kind of driven me towards graduate school in several different directions. But particularly with graduate school, research has shown me not only the questions I can ask, but the impact I can have when I gather my answers. Like was stated earlier, with evidence-based practice, the things that we learn through our research have the opportunity to help hundreds of thousands of people that we never even get to meet. And like my research with sexual health in college students, these could establish guidelines and treatment care, or guidelines of treatment and care, that become the standard for how college students access healthcare and help, to lower some of the awful STI transmission rates that are experienced, especially in our state. So I think that's one of the things that research really did in graduate school, is it showed me the impact I could have through research, and the fact that there are actually careers in which people just pay you to learn things. And it's still wicked to my brain, but it definitely helped me push me towards grad school because it showed me all the things I could do with research.
So I also knew that I wanted to go to grad school, but through these projects, these projects have actually helped me like solidify what I actually want to do in grad school. So after working on these two kind of related projects, I know that I want to work in this intersection of race and media, which has actually helped me, strengthen my application to grad school, because now I know for sure like what I want to do and what kind of research I want to pursue in graduate school.
As an undergraduate, I wouldn't say that research necessarily drove me to attend graduate school, but I will say it certainly prepared me. It prepared me not only for graduate school, but for being a practicing RN in and of itself, because I was able to look at research and look at the articles that came in the magazines and determine whether or not that was a good article, whether or not the research was valid, and whether or not it was applicable to what I was doing every day. I will also say, however, that now that I am in the graduate program, the research has led me to consider whether or not I want to continue my education in the doctorate program, and whether or not I love research enough to want to do that. It's incredibly interesting what we are able to see and what we're able to do as healthcare providers through research, and moving to the next level as a nurse would be the best way to do that. So like I said, as an undergraduate, I wouldn't necessarily say that it drove me to graduate school, but I will say as a graduate student, it's certainly having me consider furthering my education past the master's program.
Ashley, something that you just said, my segue to our next question. People say to me sometimes, I don't think I can do research because I'm not XYZ enough. And I think that anybody can do research as long as they're persistent enough, or, stubborn enough. It might be a less pretty word to use there, but what are some soft skills? No, I'm not going to say soft skills. What are just some skills that anybody can have that would usher them into research projects? What are some skills that you might need that would apply to things like being prepared for graduate school or in your workforce that research gives you?
If nothing else, a research project will make you a more organized human being. You don't have a choice because you have to get it together and you have to set deadlines for yourself. And yes, you can do it. You have to set deadlines for yourself and you have to set goals for yourself. And when you sit down and you plan that out effectively, you not only learn those intrapersonal skills, but you learn to be able to get to your goal and reach the end of the project. And not only have you done your research, but you've bettered yourself along the way.
I would also say something along those lines, patience and discipline.
I think I'm going to answer that by saying there's no bad way to start research. You can use whatever, there's no gatekeeping skills that you have to have before you can start research. Because if you really think about it, when a toddler touches a hot stove, that's research. It hurts, but it's research. So as long as you are willing to ask a question and then, like Hillary said, persist to find the answer, you are able to do research. And research will teach you even more of the stubbornness and persistence. It will teach you critical thinking and analytical skills that will serve you throughout your entire life and career, but also make you a better researcher. It is a process in motion. You don't have to be perfect to start. You just have to start to eventually get to perfect.
Yeah, to me, it's definitely the skill of just asking questions, because you really never know until you just ask a random question and then you kind of look up and no one's maybe worked on it or had any previous research on it. And you might just find yourself something that's never been done before. So just being super curious and keep on asking questions regardless of them sounding stupid in your head, like it's going to get you far in research.
I would add to that by saying the person having drive within to get through those really difficult times when it just seems like you've hit the brick wall of finding information, and just being persistent and getting through that, because you never know what could be on the other side of the door of information unless you go through it and just keep pressing on.
Kind of switching gears a little bit, can you talk about a memorable and or difficult moment, depending on your experience, you had when you were pursuing one of those questions that we just discussed?
I would say a difficult moment for me was probably halfway through the research study, and I was tired of reading. I had read so many different articles and it had so much information, and I felt overwhelmed because I thought about the topic and I was like, I should have made this more simplistic. Like, why did I choose such a broad topic? But honestly, after I got through that and I just kind of walked away from all of the information and just took like a break and sleep and woke up again, it was easier to process things because I realized that I overwhelmed myself with just so much information. And when I looked at everything that I was looking at before, after this time of rest, it all made more sense, and I could put it into perspective, because that panic that sets in easily, it wasn't really there anymore.
For me, it was the summer of my sophomore year when I was interning at the lab at Mississippi State. They did a lot of field work, and I mean, it was, summer in Mississippi. It was my first time being here even during the summer, and it was literally like 100 degrees, and we're out in the field like trying to plant these crops, and that's the day I realized I don't want to do field work. So that's at least good, because at least that helped me like narrow down my list, because my whole problem from the beginning was just I didn't know what I wanted to do. That's why I was doing all these types of research. So now I know for a fact that I don't want to do field work. So yeah, that was my greatest challenge.
I think I face two greatest challenges that are kind of the same thing. When you do research, there becomes a point where you are just mentally fatigued, or you don't know how to brush your teeth without reading about it first. I remember a fun phone call with my mother over the summer. We did the summer research scholars here. where she just called me out of the blue, which she doesn't do, and was like, "How are you doing?" And I said, "I've read about 80 journals in a week and a half. I don't know. Let me read and I'll get back to you." So you just get to the point where you have to find a way to persist past just the mental blockade that you have created for yourself. And the other biggest challenge is being able to accept that you want to change your research direction slightly after all the reading that you've done. Literature review is a beautiful thing because it teaches you things you never knew about your field, but it's a difficult thing because you find things within your field that you would be better suited for within your research, and then you kind of have to shift. So sometimes half of those 80 journals you read, you don't really need. And making peace with that within yourself, that's a challenge.
I think that's like somewhat similar to what I faced. When I first started like both of my research, there was this particular direction that I wanted to take. But then after a while, I was like, well, maybe it would be better if I went just a little bit of another direction. But it still felt bittersweet because I still wanted to pursue the other thing. But you just kind of have to tell yourself, well, you don't have the time or the resource to do that. So just try to work with whatever you have and whatever works for you at the moment.
And to add to what you all have already said, it's a difficult thing to look at yourself and say, okay, I'm going to do this, but I can't save the world by doing this. That's a hard thing to grasp. But I will say I have two very memorable moments from the undergraduate program, which I'm very anticipatory to feel the same way with the graduate program. One of those being the approval from the IRB board. That was just phenomenal to get and to know that someone else is validating the work that I've done and the work that I'm going to continue to do. And then the day that manuscript was set in front of me and it was finished, because there was the fruit of my labor and I have finished it and here it is. I can look at it, I can see it, I can smell it. It's real. This wasn't for naught.
What would you guys do differently now that you've had a chance to reflect on the hardships and the triumphs? If you could go back and do the process again, what would you do differently?
Comparing graduate research to undergraduate research, if I could go back to my undergraduate and do it over again, I would definitely slow down and take in a little bit more time and appreciation for what I was doing and not just say, okay, I have a deadline, I need to do this, I have a deadline, I need to do this. I would really slow down and look at what I was doing and take it all in and try to see the big picture, because I think, as far as I mentioned earlier with the organizations, it's very easy to get bogged down with deadlines and nitpicky things and miss the beauty of what you're actually doing. So that would be my one recommendation to Ashley, if she could go back all those years ago, would be to slow down and appreciate what you're actually doing.
I wish I'd gotten involved a little earlier. Like, I knew I wanted to do research, but I felt like I kept postponing it. And if I had started it earlier, or even if it was not official, at least started thinking about it earlier, doing a little bit of pre-research on my own, I feel like I would have done much better.
First of all, take more notes, because there was a point where I had, stuffed my brain with all this information, and then I got to the end of the day and I'm like, great, now how is this going to work? Wait, what did I just read? And I did that more times than I would care to admit. So, take more notes. And two, really create a schedule that is not a pie in the sky idea. Because you can sit here and be like, yeah, I can read 10 journal articles in a day. It's fine. These articles can be anywhere from like 5 to 50 pages. Be understanding of who you are. And that's what I would do. Chill out. It's fine. The world's not going to burn if you don't read all 5. Do your research, but also don't forsake yourself and take notes.
To me, I wish that I'd gone to more conferences, because like in January, I went to a conference, and while I was presenting my poster, people were asking me all these questions that I had never even thought to pursue for my further research. And it was super simple questions that I probably should have thought of anyway, but I was just so blindsided by all the work that I'd done. And I thought that I couldn't ask more questions on that topic anymore. So either just like attend more conferences, do more poster sessions, or even just talk about my research to people who I think might be interested, to ask more questions on it. That way it would help me further my research some more.
I definitely agree with everyone else with organization and really understanding the value of what you're learning at the time, because when looking back over all of the interesting articles, the different things that I was able to find at the time, I don't think I valued it as much as I should have. And so taking the time to really process everything and put it into perspective, I think it would have been very beneficial for me at that time.
So if it's possible, how would you flip that around and advise someone else who's looking to get started with research? You've given a lot of good advice so far, but if somebody is new to it and doesn't know what you know, what would you say is the first step you would suggest taking if somebody's interested in participating in research?
Just do it. Jump in. The water's fine. You're going to come out on the other side. So just taking the initiative and then taking a chance to find out new information is really important. Just that first step.
To me would be just get to know the advisor that you are going to be working with. To me, I mean, I kind of jumped into a lot of situations not fully understanding how they worked or their lab worked. So it's always important to kind of do your research beforehand. And if there's other people that have worked in that lab before or worked with the advisor before, just ask them how it is. That way, you know, you have a good time in there, and then you're not just a sad, miserable person in someone's lab.
I think one of the first and most important things you have to do when undertaking research to begin with is to really understand and internalize, why are you doing this research? Because there will be nights where you have read 80 journal articles and your brain is fried and you just want to eat some chicken tenders and go to bed and not wake up for 2 weeks. And you have to be able to get yourself out of bed and do what you need to do the next day. And having a purpose behind your research is really the thing that can do that. Whether it's like Ashley said, it's evidence-based practice and you're really helping your patients, or if it is something that you've wanted to know since you were a kid, or it's just, is the stove hot like a toddler wonders? Having to know why you are doing this is essential to doing research. That's not to say you're always going to get to do research that you are super passionate about and every day is going to set you on fire, but understanding why it is, whether it's professional development or personal curiosity or to help your patients, understand and internalize that, and that will get you far.
I would say just ask questions, like whatever curiosity you may have. Like for me, it was like for my first project, I was just looking at why are these characters in the movies extremely one certain type of way, and why do they get to be represented while other people cannot? And then for my second project, it was just, well, why are these people making memes? And just work on that. Just take the first step, work on your curiosity, and then go on and find the next steps, be it by whether talking to your professor or just, you know, doing the research on your own.
As far as the nursing students go, which hopefully there are some of you guys that are streaming, you guys are having to do research as part of a requirement of your program. And my advice would be to those nursing students, don't be bitter. This is important. It's hard to see why this is important when you sit down, you look at it to begin with, and you just really kind of don't understand, and you really don't want to do it. You think this is a busy work. It's not. It's incredibly important, and you're going to be out there saving people's lives one day, and you need to know why you're doing the things you're doing and why you don't do the things that you're not supposed to do. And if you can't look at research and you can't understand why it's that way, you're doing a disservice not only for your patients, but you're doing a disservice for yourself.
Okay, this is not a question that I gave you, so my apologies. But if you could sum up your experience in 3 words, what would they be?
That's a really hard question. If I could summarize my research experience in 3 words, well, it's hard. 3 is hard. You know, for me, it would be the greater good, because that's ultimately what the research is for, is to be the greater good.
I would say coffee, frustration, and excitement.
Heartbreaking, euphoric, worthwhile.
It's challenging but so rewarding.
Frustrating, evaluating, and fulfilling.
Awesome. Thanks for letting me do that to you. So with like 10 or 15 minutes left, I was wondering if anybody attending either in person or online has any questions. Feel free to ask questions of an individual or to the group. And if you're online and you want to just chat, type your question in the chat. I will ask it for you if that's what you want to do. So, any questions from anybody?
Hey, Crystal, you want to be my mentor?
I will be here for emotional support.
Basically, for me, I've noticed that I'm a very spiteful creature. Like, usually if somebody tells me I can't do something, that's whenever I'm most like, oh, I'm going to prove you wrong. So basically, I just need somebody to like tell me I can't do it so I can stay motivated this semester. I'll pay you like $25 a week.
Just say no for you.
I'll be you.
Okay.
I felt like you were saying.
It's going to be critical and get paid.
Anybody else? Just a second.
Well, thank you for coming. Thank you to our panelists for taking the time out of their busy researching schedules to talk to you all. And thank you for coming. And thank you guys online for being here. And if you guys want to stick around and have some snacks, we have some. So thanks again. I appreciate you.